Hey everybody, Nick Dingle here. Welcome to the second part of our text game tutorial. So let's start by creating a brand new project. We're going to stick ourselves into a console application. I'm going to call him text-based game. I'm going to click OK and wait a few seconds for it to create it. Now before we actually create anything, I'm going to create 3 extra files in my project, and they're going to contain the game classes, the editor code, and the game code, just so we can segregate the code a little bit. So module 1 is going to look exactly like what we had on the video last time. So right-click on text-based game, let's click Add. Let's go to start with, I'm going to go a class, and I'm going to call it Game Class As. All right, and we're going to edit this guy a little bit, but before we do, let's create 2 more. Add a module, call it Editor. Add another module, same way, call it Game. Alright, now with all that set up, let's focus purely on the Game Classes class, and we're going to start right here. I'm actually going to start by getting rid of this public class. I just like to name the file Game Classes, and then I'm going to create all my classes inside of that. Now these classes are going to store the enemy information, the player information, item information, room information, and the level information. So there's a lot of stuff we need to remember. And all those things need to handle themselves. So printing them to the screen, editing them, adding items to them, moving around the level, things like that. All this code is going to be handled inside this. The editor and the game are just going to call on these functions and these properties. And that's what's going to make this such a long class. So I might break this into a couple of videos. But for the moment, let's dive right into it by creating ourselves an enum. And this is going to store the direction in which we can move around the world. So first of all, let's go. We can be able to move north, south, west, and east. Okay? So imagine it's up, down, left, and right, basically. If you'd like a little comment, this stores the direction of player movement, and we're going to use this a lot. We're going to use this in the editor, we're going to use this in the game, we're going to use this pretty much throughout anything to do with the level and movement and rooms. We're going to be using this guy here. Right? You don't have to use an enum, but it looks nice if you do. Anytime I do this kind of stuff, I'm going to collapse this. So make sure you copy this down, pause the video, because I'm going to collapse him, and we're going to move on to the next one, which is going to start with the items. So let me just find him. There he is. Let's go public class item. All right, and you've got to think about, first of all, what is an item going to be? Well, in my game, we've got a couple of things in an item. We've got a name. We've got a look at string, which is when I type in the look at, that's what it says. We then got can pick up, so whether or not the player can pick them up. And then we're going to have min damage. Now, I never use this in my game, but it's there just in case you feel like using it. So these are all the property of our items. A name, look at, can pick up, min and max damage. Now, I'm not going to include a count in here. So like if an enemy drops some coins, how many does he drop? I'm not going to include that in here because we actually include that in another area. So anyway, we need to add a little bit of code to this bad boy. I'm going to add a constructor to begin with. All of our classes pretty much are going to have constructors, and they're going to basically allow us to put in the name, a look at, and all that kind of stuff straight away. So let's go optional name as a string equals nothing. Same thing, optional look at as a string equals nothing. Optional can pick up as a boolean equals false. Optional min damage, whoop, can't spell, as a single equals 0. Finally, optional max damage as a single equals 0. Alright, so this just allows us to initialize an item with some quick values. This is really, really handy when we're doing the editor because we can just pass it a name and all the other properties straight off the bat without having to add them one by one. So let's quickly add in a comment init with the following details. So how do we distinguish between name with a capital up here and name with a little down here? Because Visual Basic doesn't care about uppercase and lowercase. All right. So the way we do that is this one up here is a part of this class. So to get to this class, you type in me.name equals name. And you can see the distinction. There's the uppercase, there's the lowercase. And you just continue that fashion. Me.lookat equals lookat, me.canPickUp equals canPickUp, me.min damage equals min damage, me.max damage equals max damage. Alright, this might look stupid, but when we get to the editor coding, you're going to see how useful it bloody is. Alright, let's keep going. We're going to add in a couple more functions. The first one is the toString function by default in Visual Basic is going to return text-based game .gameClasses.item. So it's going to be a really convoluted toString. So what we're going to do is override the toString function. All right, if that was way too quick for you, I'm going to do it again. We type in overrides, press space, and then you just double click on the toString. It fills in all that stuff for you. Now, this basically, what we want to do is we don't want to return some stupid class name. We want to return the name of the item. So that's all we do there. But this does not help when we're editing. We don't want just the name when we're editing the game. We want the name, the lookout message, the canPickUp, the min damage, and the max damage all in one go. So what I'm going to do, same as the constructor, for most of our classes, I'm going to have a print function. And this print function is going to be utilized primarily by our editor. Okay, so what I'm going to return, first of all, to make it look nice, I'm going to put some tabs in there. And the name is going to start, put the name afterwards, and then a new line. And what the hell is an anim? Name. Better. Okay, then a couple of tabs in there. And it's going to be look at message. And then I'm just going to continue basically in this fashion until we're done. Couple of tabs, can pick up, and then we're going to have can pick up. Whoa, 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 can. Whoa, what are you doing? That one. Silly baby. And then the min and max damage. So min damage. There's going to be a bit of copying and pasting, as you can probably imagine later on. And then finally, max damage. Alright, so that print function is primarily for the editor. If you need time to type all that up, please pause the video because that's our item class done. And then we need to go into the next one very, very soon. So, hope you got that code. I'm just going to collapse Mr. Item here, and we're going to start on our next class, which is called Item Reference. Now, this is quite a different way about going about things, but I'm sure most games do it. We're going to use this class for the global list of items. So the list of items in our level is going to be of items. And then each room and the player's inventory is going to have references to that list of items. So what that basically means is we can have multiple, let's say we have one sword in our game, okay, a short sword. And we have one in a couple of levels, we have one on an enemy, and we have one on the player. So instead of storing all that information 3 different times, you store it once inside your item class, and then we just reference it a number of times in different areas. Okay, so we're going to utilize this item reference in inventories, on enemies, and in rooms. Okay, so first of all, we need to know what item we are referencing, and we're going to keep the index of the item. So public index as an integer, and that's going to point towards the item in the list of our level. Okay, we'll get to how that works in a second, and then we need to know how many there are. So public count as integer, and now I said this before, we're going to have constructors in every single one of our classes, and they're going to look the same. Optional index as integer equals 0. Optional count as integer equals, let's say, 1 by the default. So init with the following details, me.index equals index, me.count equals count, and you can see how this project's basically going to go. So that's the item reference done. Pause the video if you need to type him up. We're not going to do a print message for this guy because we don't need one. We've got one in the item class. All right, I'm going to collapse him, and then we're going to move on to our next class. Okay, now we're going to set up a class which is actually going to store the information for all your enemies and your player as well. So we're actually creating a bit of a generic account which is going to store information about both of those things. I tried to think of the best name for this class as I could, and the best one I could come up with was humanoid. Because really, if you think about it, your enemies are basically humanoid. Okay, they're all going to have names, they're all going to have health, they're all going to have damage, and they're all going to have items. Okay, and then and your player's going to have it. So realistically, I called it humanoid. If you could come up with a better name for the class, go for it. You'll just have to utilize it throughout this entire project. So let's put in these properties. We're going to have a name for them. We're going to have the max health. Now we're not going to put single, not string. We're not going to put the minimum health or the current health or something like that, because that, again, is going to come in the reference to the humanoid. So let's do the min damage, the max damage as a single, and then we're going to have items as a list. And every time we talk about items, we're going to be using an item reference rather than an actual item itself. Right. Like everything, let's create a constructor, which has got all the properties. As a string, optional max damage as a single equals 0. Get back up there. Optional min damage. Oh my gosh, I can't type at this point. Optional max. What am I doing? Ah, damn it. Health. I did them out of order, but anyway, you get the point. Alright. Init with those values. I'm getting lazier. Me.name equals name. Me.max health. Let's go damage because it's in that order. Me.min equals min. Me.max health equals max health. Alright. The only other thing we have to do is we have to create a list of these items. We have to create a brand new list. So let's create the new list. So if you go me.items equals a new list of item reference, that's going to do that for you. Alright. Same thing that we did with the item. We have to overload the toString function, and we have to change the print function as well. So let's do that just here. Let's go overrides toString, and let's just replace this mybase.toString with name. All right, and then finally, let's do the print function for our game editor. So print as a string, and let's return. Again, I'm going to do a couple of tabs in there. Name, colon, and name. This is going to look like it's repeating itself because it is. I'm going to copy all that. Copy, paste. And what's the next one I've got? Let's do this in the right order this time. Max health. Replace this with max health. The next one is min damage. Replace this with min damage. And then finally, let's do the max damage with max damage. Get rid of all that bit. Okay, so remember everybody, this print is purely when we're using the editor, so we're going to see all their stats. That's a bit ugly. Alright, if you need time to type up your humanoid class, go for it, because we're about to jump into the humanoid reference class. So, hopefully you're with me now. Public class, humanoid reference. Alright, let's set up the properties. Same thing that we did for the items. We're going to have the index as an integer. We're then going to have the count as an integer. And then because humanoids can get hurt, lose health, and die, we're going to have their public current health as a single. And that way, as the enemies individually get hurt one by one, we can take off parts of their health. Alright, now let's put in the constructor, sub-new, same thing as always. Optional index as an integer. We're not going to do a toString or a print function for this guy, so he's going to be nice and quick. Current health as a single equals 1, why not? And let's go me.index equals the index. Me.count equals count. Me.current health equals current health. Alright, we didn't put a comment. And yet with the values, because I'm getting lazier. Alright, again, if you'd like to pause and write up your humanoid reference, go for it, because we're about to delve into the worst class that we've got, and that is the room. So public class room. This guy is going to be very annoying. Now, if you can remember, that I had all of those stats up on the map editor where I had the name, the description, the block rooms, the items, and the enemies. We have to put in spots for every single one of those. So start with the name and then go to the description. This is pretty easy, straightforward. Don't know what the hell that was. And then we need the blocked walls, which is going to be an array of 4 booleans. Don't forget, that is going to declare an array from 0 to 3, so 4 booleans. All right, and then we're going to utilize this direction enum later for it. And now we need a list of the items in the room, items as a new list of item reference. And then we need the enemies, public enemies, as a new list of humanoid reference. Whew, and we're good to go. Let's do the constructor with an optional name and an optional description. We're not going to do the booleans or the list of items and enemies because we actually don't need to. All right, so description as a string equals 0, 0. And then we go init these values. My comments are getting lazier in this. Me.name equals name, me.description equals description. Now, because I've put new up here, I'm not going to have to declare it as a new list down here. Probably could have done that up in the humanoid with the items, but anyway, that's done. If you'd like to go back and change it, you go for it. Oh, okay, here comes the big part, and I apologize for this one. Okay, we want to be able to print the room and the block walls to the screen. So what I'm going to do is set up a couple of functions here. Public print blocked walls as a string, and it's going to be the same thing. This is going to be used by the the map editor to display the blocked rooms. So we've got north, and we're going to print if he is blocked. So remember, this is coming from this blocked. By default, every boolean is going to be false, which means they're walkable rooms. And what we're going to do to get the individual directions, you're going to go blocked direction dot north. Okay? And this is the way we're going to use the blocked and the movement and the direction enum the whole time. Okay, let's steal this. I hope that makes some sense. So south is going to be the same thing. North, south, so we have to change that to south. Oh, what have you done to me, mate? And then let's go west, west, and finally east, east. Okay, get rid of that. All right, so that's printing our blocked walls to the screen, and then we're going to get past the stutter in my voice, and we're going to do the print function to the screen for our map editor. So same sort of thing, but we're going to return the name, and then we're going to return the description, and that's it. Pretty easy, this one. And description, get rid of that. All right. And then, you know what? I lied. This is actually one of our easier classes because that's done. So if you want to pause and type that up, you're going to hate me in the next one. We've got one more class that we're going to do in this video, and then we're going to leave the biggest one to the next video. So I'm going to minimize this guy. I'm going to make a new public class, and this one's going to be tiny. I'm going to make what's called a vector2 class. Now, a vector2 class is made up of an X and a Y. And we are going to use this primarily to remember where the player is in the map, to indicate, you know, where we're up to in the editor, things like that. So me.x equals x, get back, me.y equals y. Okay, and then let's override the string because it's good to do that. And we're going to return the x, a comma, y. That's a 7, not a y. Oh my gosh. So, whoops, I'm forgetting an ampersand there, sorry guys. Alright, so after all that, we have got one more class to go. However, this class is enormous. Okay? In fact, just having a look at the sheets, this class is probably as long as all the code that we've written already for the other classes, because it's going to handle a crap load of stuff. It's the level itself. So, finish typing up this guy. I hope this video made sense and you're not going to run into any errors. So make sure you check your error list, and this guy down here is blank because we don't want to move on to the next video with errors. For the moment, I'm going to sign off this video, and I am going to put in a few more comments in my code because it deserves it for each class, and I'll put the source code at the bottom of this video. So, hope you enjoyed the video, everybody. The next one, we are really going to jump into the code for the classes, and thanks for watching. See you next time, everyone.